To digest their long timeline. Bottom line, though, Jared Kushner time and time again seems to have forgotten meetings he may have had, people he may have met linked to Russia, and had to retroactively go back and put them on these forms.
Yeah, I mean, the assistant, I don't know the assistant's name, but maybe the Rosemary Woods of the new century. You know, whenever you end up having to say that it was a clerical person who made a mistake, whether it's erasing part of a Watergate tape or doing this, you know, you're in a treacherous place. One of the great questions, I think, going forward is clearly Bob Mueller has plenty to do, so that's good. He's not going to be bored as he investigates. But to what extent will a Trump base that voted for this man largely because of their discomfort with anxiety about globalization, to what extent are they going to react if in fact it turns out that we had a globalized election, that Russia was involved, which we now pretty much know, but if there was collusion, are we in a post-fact world so far past that sign, that a timeline like that, like you just laid out, actual evidence, the emails that Donald Jr. put out, these are now pieces of data. This isn't the media confecting something. This is what happened. What will the 85% of Republicans who support President Trump say? What will it take for them to say, you know what, I think that if there's this much smoke, I think there was actually fire?
Rick, his base, though, as polls have showed time and again, have hung in with him. And not just his base, but Republicans at large are with him. This
is what it is. So we're in a football stadium, and the fans are divided, and there's a call, and they play. And it says replay, right? From the flag on the play, replay. And they call the play. Half the fans will say that was the wrong call, and half will say that was the right call, based on what they both watched. And that's what it is. I mean, it's almost as if the truth doesn't matter. It is, does it help my team, or does it not help my team?
Even if the right call was clear on the Jumbotron,
even if it was
still boo.
Really, like, it was clearly out of bounds, but no, bad call.
It gets, tragically, to the one single most outstanding success of the Trump presidency. And that's his successful and sustained assault on the news media. Yeah. I mean, that has taken hold. And there are huge numbers of Americans, a huge percentage of Americans choose not to believe these stories, choose not to believe that Russia may have participated in our election, which is, in effect, an act of war, cyber war, against the United States on behalf of Donald Trump, knowingly or unknowingly on Trump's part. But the American people, a huge number of American people, do not believe the news media.
And I was going to take it one step further, excuse me, Heidi, that they're not even engaged in this story. You know, we sit here, we're all caught up with very good reason. And I still think there was a huge leap of faith in voting for him, because their attitude is, if he can bring my job back to the coal mine, or if he can help me with health care, I'm going to do it. And frankly, I think for about 90% of that 85%, until they realize that because of this, that's not going to happen, that's when they lose him. Not because of this, but the end result where he becomes impotent. And guess what? You know what? I still don't believe the Russia stuff, but he's not getting any of this stuff done. I think that's when he starts to lose them.
I just think when it comes to the news media, yes, you're right. Overall, when you put us together as the aggregate, the polls show that there's a very low level of trust. But when you start to drill down on that, what we know about American consumption of news is that it is very bifurcated, but people trust their source of news. So people who watch MSNBC or CNN, they have much higher numbers for people who, you know, in terms of trust of the news media that you watch. So I think as this starts to come out, as this information starts to come out, even on outlets like Fox, there are people who are speaking out, like Charles Krauthammer, who are saying, look, we have been lied to for 6 months. I think that starts to resonate. And as well, when the information is coming out, Rick, like on the health care bill that is going to affect so many Americans in these rural states.
Trump's voters know he lies. That's not a mystery to them. But he's our liar, right? You know, he's going to, you know, well, they lie. How do you like it? You know, but the other thing is, what Trump leaves on the table is just what you said, Heidi, is even though he can communicate directly with the voters, which is a new thing through Twitter and social media, which is extraordinary in itself, but More people watch MSNBC today. More people are reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Fox, and all the rest of it. They're getting their news
It's
through the
still
same...
such a small slice. You say a lot of people. There are 300 million people in this country, and if you look at the numbers, although this is a wildly successful show that this show does, and Fox, it's still
But the failure
very
to
small
communicate through all those vehicles and leaving those voters on the table, you know, you're going to be stuck with a base of support that's not large enough.
If you talk to a Trump supporter, an ardent Trump supporter, and there remain a lot of them, they broadly believe that the Russia story is the witch hunt that Donald Trump claims it is. So
I think it's like the Democrats thought it was Benghazi.
Well, you can present facts, as we've been doing, and you can give a detail of the story, and it's not interesting because they've already dismissed it at large, that it's not worth pursuing.
And that's why I think actually the Democrats are worried that they can't control everyone in their caucus. They can't control people who are rushing gleefully to file articles of impeachment. Other Democrats that I talk to in the leadership say, look, we need to let this process play out. The truth will come out. And when you talk to even Republicans who are very skeptical of what's going on right now off the record, they say they just want to wait for Bob Mueller because we in this country... Remember, Russia started doing this digging before Trump was anywhere on the scene. The ultimate goal is to pit us against each other, American against American, to undermine faith in our system. And that's what's going to happen unless both sides wait for the full information to come out before rushing to conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Putin has already won a huge victory. He's created chaos within the American political system. But the larger issue, there's an intersection here. The diminishment of belief in the news media and the president's behavior, his, you know, inability to stick to the truth or tell the truth. But if you go out, like Jon Meacham, he's out. When he gets driven from place to place where ordinary people live and work down in Tennessee,
Don't forget the backup car.
I think he would find the same thing that all of us find when you lead your normal life off this set. People are concerned about, am I going to lose my health care?
Yeah.
What's health care going to cost? And while everybody says in the newspapers and on the business pages the economy is really soaring, people don't believe that. They don't grasp the reality of a strong economy. And John, I assume that you might find the same thing when you do get out of the back of the car.
You know, it's funny. When I asked for my 7-iron, and we exchanged a few words, you're absolutely right. It's the reason, again, the reason Trump was elected was distrust in government as it exists, and anxiety about a political class that had had either a Bush or a Clinton on virtually every ticket since 1980, and a household income that is stagnant or moving just a tiny, tiny bit. That's why he's there. Now, his popularity, what we all talk about, may be driven by the other political stuff, but that's the fundamental covenant. And if he doesn't deliver, I do think that ultimately his political support begins to erode somewhat. Now, the laws of political gravity have not been entirely repealed, but, you know, the elections politics is like the Pepsi challenge, right? It's one or the other. You know, you can't beat something with nothing. So the shape and face of the opposition, both inside the Republican Party, insofar as any develops, and on the Democratic side, is going to be vital. You know, I just think that if we, the final point here is the politics of this are incredibly important. Impeachment, ultimately, if that were ever on the table, is a political process. But there is the rule of law. And the rule of law, which is a fundamental premise of the country, is not subject, should not be subject to popular passion. And so these investigations are going to have their own momentum.
And we'll talk about health care, Mike, coming up next, hanging by a thread right now for Republicans. Also ahead, we'll read from that Charles Krauthammer piece Heidi mentioned. It's titled, Bungled Collusion is Still Collusion. Also ahead, just hours after Republicans unveiled their new health care bill, 2 Republican senators announced their opposition, and several others are still undecided. President Trump saying this morning that, quote, Republican senators must come through as they have promised. We'll get into that. And we'll speak live with Democratic Whip Dick Durbin. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Come boys, let's go. Buddy, leave the car, leave it. Have we got everyone? The all-new Discovery. Land Rover, above and beyond.
When you have $4.95 online U.S. equity trades, you realize the smartest investing idea isn't just what you invest in, but who you invest with.
BP uses FLIR cameras, a new thermal imaging technology, to inspect difficult-to-reach pipelines so we can detect leaks before humans can see them. Because safety is never being satisfied and always working to be better.
There's nothing more important to me than my vacation. So when I need to book a hotel, I want someone who makes it easy to find what I want. Booking.com gets it. And with their price match, I know I'm getting the best price every time. Come on, Gary!
Your vacation is very important. That's why Booking.com makes finding the right hotel for the right price easy. Visit Booking.com now to find out why we're booking.yeah.
Delicious pasta marinara.
But Birdseye made it from zucchini.
Mashed potatoes and rice.
But made from cauliflower.
Looks like I need a fork.
Oh, no. New Birdseye Veggie Made, so veggie good.
After more than 20 years, you can now join Angie's List for free. That means everyone has access to our real reviews that we actually verify. And we can also verify that what goes down doesn't always come back up. So if you need a great plumber, find one at Angie's List. Join today for free. Because your home is where our heart is.
Constipated? Trust #1 doctor recommended Dulcolax. Use Dulcolax tablets for gentle, dependable relief, suppositories for relief in minutes, and Dulcoes for comfortable relief of hard stools. Dulcolax, designed for dependable relief.
Hi, I'm Jesse. And I'm Ben. We started Hubble because contact lenses are too expensive. At Hubble, our fresh daily contacts are affordable and delivered straight to you. Hubble. Daily contacts, first 2 weeks free.
Can we at least analyze customer traffic?
Can we push the offer online?
Legacy technology can handcuff any company, but yes is here.
You're saying the new app will go live Monday?
Yeah, with help from HP, we can finally work the way we want to.
With the right mix.
Kenyans are go-getters. Kenya is definitely Africa's Silicon Savannah.
Kenya has one of the best educated population.
Kenya is ripe for investment. Our business is driven by the Kenyan people.
Everyone with a phone has the power to grow the economy.
Kenya is on the verge of becoming a significant global player.
Would I invest in Kenya again? 10 times over.
And that is why the future is Kenya.
Have you ever seen the emerald waters of Barbados? Or seen a butler walk on water? Sandals Barbados, where exclusive is always inclusive. Call 1-800-SANDALS today.
Are you a Christian author with a book ready to share with the world but need a publisher? We'll place your book for sale at all major mainstream booksellers, offering it to millions. We do it all.
Call for your free author submission kit at 800-622-1421. The Pain Relief Hotline right now.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. After reworking their health care legislation, Senate Republicans have unveiled a new bill that already appears to be in jeopardy. Early this morning, President Trump applied pressure to his party, tweeting, "Republican senators are working hard to get their failed Obamacare replacement approved. I will be at my desk, pen in hand." So important Republican senators under leadership of Mitch McConnell get health care plan approved after 7 years of O-Care disaster must happen. He went on, after all these years of suffering through Obamacare, Republican senators must come through as they have promised, end quotes. But already, Senators Rand Paul and Susan Collins, both Republicans, have said they will not support the bill, leaving Republicans with not a single vote to spare.
Do you think the new version is better than the old version?
No, I think it's worse. I mean, the old version repealed most of the Obamacare taxes. This repeals about half the Obamacare taxes. Continues to fund the majority of the subsidies, continues to keep the majority of the regulations. So really, I think we're keeping Obamacare as much as anything, and that's not our promise.
It does not make sense to do a major rewrite of a vital entitlement program without having any hearings or consideration of the implications. So that's something that is a major reason that I find myself unable to support the bill.
To win over moderates, the revised bill includes $45 billion to fight the opioid epidemic, $70 billion to help stabilize the insurance market, and it extends 3 Obamacare taxes, helping ease criticism of tax breaks for the wealthy. To appease conservatives, the bill would also allow insurers to sell new low-cost, stripped-down policies that are not Obamacare compliant. Large cuts to Medicaid, though, will remain in place, which has left some senators undecided on the new bill. Over the next several days, McConnell expected to meet with holdouts to try to convince them not to walk away from their promise to repeal Obamacare.
What's your bet on whether Mitch McConnell can pull this off?
Well, he's good. He's pulled more than one rabbit out of the hat, and I keep asking him if he feels the fuzzy ears of another one in there somewhere. So we'll see. But we need to do this and move on then to tax reform and other things.
The bill today reflects the input from senators across the spectrum. It's not the ideal bill I'd like to pass. I suspect there may not be a single senator for whom it's the ideal bill they'd like to pass.
All right, Heidi, so we're at 50 right now. It's a 50-50 split, not one more vote to spare. At 50-50, Mike Pence comes in and closes the deal for them. But you heard the skepticism there. We didn't even hear from Dean Heller, Rob Portman, Capito. The list goes on of people who are on the fence and, based on their comments yesterday, probably swinging toward no.
And here's the problem, Willie. In a matter of days, we will go through this familiar dance of getting the CBO report, right, which will show that the headline remains the same. Millions of people lose health care. And now you've got all of these moderates. You've got at least 9 members, not all of them moderates, but most of them moderates, expressing concerns even now. I just don't know how, when you have so many states where Republicans are serving that expanded Medicaid that are going to lose that the end product is going to be any different in terms of millions losing and the essential position of those members. I was on the Hill the other day and I spoke with a Republican who is one of their top targets here that they're worried about, and he said, look, if we can't get this done in the next week, we are going to have to work with Democrats to shore up those individual markets. So that may be a breakthrough, Willie, because I've been covering this Congress for several years, and it is malpractice on the American people the way our government is working. They're doing things in secret, and let's be clear. Democrats didn't work with Republicans either on Obamacare. And here's what you get: you get something that doesn't work long term. And the same thing is happening now, done in secret. One party. This is not the way our government is supposed to be functioning.
But the Obamacare debate went on for months and months and months,
it did.
More than a year.
I'm just saying it was a single, but it was a party line.
Right. So that CBO report could come as soon as Monday. Joining us now from Washington, Director of Domestic Policy Studies at Stanford University and Research Fellow at the Hoover Institution, Lanhee Chen. So Lanhee, this illustrates this entire process over the last several weeks, the difficulty of legislating, basically, which is the fact that even within your own caucus, you've got disparate interests who want disparate things. It's going to be very hard to create a bill that appeases both Rand Paul and Rob Portman at the same time.
Yeah, Willie, you're seeing this challenge play out before our very eyes, that you've got some members that are deeply concerned about the changes to Medicaid. By the same token, there's some members that are voting for the bill precisely because of the changes to Medicaid. I think where we are now in this process is that you've got Mitch McConnell, you've got a decent amount of money left in terms of the deficit reduction that the bill has showed. And the question is, are there enough deals that can be made between now and when this bill is going to go to its initial procedural vote next week to get the support you need to move to debate on the bill? I think if they move to debate on the bill, senators will feel like they can exercise their individual pet projects. They can have a debate about this provision or that provision. But really the key question here is whether they've got the votes to proceed to the bill in the first place.
Lonnie, you played a critical role in Governor Romney's 2012 campaign for the presidency. And Governor Romney, of course, when he was governor of Massachusetts, implemented, outlined, designed, and got enacted a health care legislation that was quite similar to what we call Obamacare, and that name clearly has obsessed Mitch McConnell and the Republicans now for years, Obamacare. My question to you is, with the existing state of crisis in health care in America, wouldn't it have been simpler just to take Obamacare, the parts of Obamacare that clearly have trouble functioning, and just fix them instead of doing what they're doing now?
You know, I think the challenge is that for the last 7 years, Republicans at all levels of government have been talking about the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. And there's reason for some Republicans, I think, to make the argument that there are some fundamentals in Obamacare that are broken enough that a new process needs to be put in place. I think that's the argument that's been made. The challenge, of course, is a political one, which is that there isn't a strong incentive at this point to work together with Democrats, nor, frankly, is there interest on the part of Democrats to work with Republicans, so long as the point that Republicans are trying to advance is the repeal of Obamacare. So you have this interesting political dynamic where Democrats don't have an incentive to work with Republicans, and Republicans at this point are advancing a policy agenda that they're going to have to move forward using only Republican votes. So that's the challenge. When Mitt Romney passed health care in Massachusetts, it was a bipartisan effort. It was a multi-year process, very different than what we're seeing now.
Lonnie, what do you think of the alternative of Cassidy Graham is we're working on, where the money, instead of being a federalized government system, and that's what we're talking about. I think one of the things that the Republicans and Democrats will disagree on is that the Republicans, by and large, not all of them, don't want a federal system, and it looks like Graham Cassidy, which I find attractive, would send the money back to the states and let the states manage their health care populations.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting, I might consider it a fallback proposal, depending on what happens next week. The basic idea behind this proposal, very similar to a proposal that was introduced by Senators Collins and Cassidy a few months ago, is that you would take the sum total of spending on Obamacare and give states the option, essentially, whether they want to continue with the Obamacare regulations and mandates and rules, or whether they want to go in a different direction. State innovation has always been at the heart of our healthcare system. In fact, the United States healthcare system historically has been premised on states doing what they think is best for their citizens. So the idea of a federalist solution in healthcare, I think, is very attractive. But we're not going to be able to get there until we get past this debate next week.
Mike, I want to pick up a point you made about Obamacare. And obviously the healthcare issue is a health issue and a political issue, a political Rubik's Cube. But I wonder if the word Obama had never happened, and we were always talking about the Affordable Care Act, how this would have played out differently. And I do believe it would be more, how do we kind of help and fix the Affordable Care Act? And so much of this, unfortunately, is branding. I mean, we're talking about lives here, but if you look at every one of Trump's tweets, it's never about, this is what I want to happen, this is what I want for health insurance, this is what I want for the people of this country. It's kill Obamacare. And there's a big branding problem here. I know that's oversimplifying. I think the discussion will be very different.
If you take Obamacare away, maybe not President Trump, but Republicans would tell you it's what's happening because of the Affordable Care Act that they object to, which is premiums going up, choice going down, insurers leaving marketplaces.
But I wonder if the word, it's specifics, but my point would be, we need to change the Affordable Care Act. We need to make that better. We need to fix it as opposed to destroy it.
Or call this
Donnie has a
Trump,
point.
I don't care.
If Democrats, at this point, this is going to be a huge dismount for Republicans to admit that Obamacare isn't actually collapsing, as the Kaiser Family Foundation now says in a recent report. But Donnie makes a great point about branding. Maybe that can be the Democratic concession to Republicans, is to make it, at least give it a new name, to make it look like it's something different. Just make changes to it, call it something different.
Heidi, please don't encourage Donnie by saying he made a good point. It's not good. It's like feeding stray cats. He'll come back for more. Lonnie, before we let you go, handicap this vote for us. He's got nothing to spare here. What's going to happen?
You know, I think Mitch McConnell's going to have the votes on the motion to proceed next week. It's going to be close. I think he's going to have the votes on the motion to proceed, and as an extension of that, I do think they actually get something done, but it's going to be a nail-biter. All
right, Lonnie Chen, thanks as always for your perspective. Coming up next, we've seen President Trump blame President Obama for doing little to stop Russia's interference in the 2016 election. Now, Trump is blaming former Attorney General Loretta Lynch for the meeting between his own son and that Russian lawyer. We'll hear how he makes that connection ahead on Morning Joe.
Vito missed the boat that day he left the shack.
Gentlemen, the tea is yours. This is the Open.
And the champion golfer of the year.
Live coverage all day Thursday on Golf Channel and continues on NBC.
Finding the best hotel price is now a safe bet because TripAdvisor searches over 200 booking sites, so you save up to 30% on the hotel you want. Lock it in. TripAdvisor.
Wow.
Where all the walls echo with laughter, and every room has its own chapter.
You've carried on your family's tradition. Let us help you prepare for your family's future. Financial guidance while you're mastering life. From Chase, so you can.
Binders, done. Super cool notebooks, done.
That's Mom taking care of business. But who takes care of Mom? Office Depot Office Max. This week, get this ream of paper for just 1 cent after rewards.
Taking care of business.
When it was time to sell our home, it was like everybody knew an agent.
What about your second cousin, Barry?
We were not going to list with your second cousin, Barry. That's when we found HomeLight.
HomeLight figured out which agents were best in our area, given their past performance.
Then they matched us with the right agent for our needs.
Our house closed in just 2 days, and with multiple offers above asking price.
Barry, they found their agent on HomeLight.
Home what?
HomeLight.com.
Hi, I'm Jesse. And I'm Ben. We started Hubble because contact lenses are too expensive. At Hubble, our fresh daily contacts are affordable and delivered straight to you. Hubble. Daily contacts, half the price.
9 out of 10 of our drivers recommend their cars. Now their words are part of our very fabric. The 2017 Mitsubishi Outlander and Outlander Sport. Get up to $2,000 cash back or 0% APR for 72 months on select models.
Going somewhere? Here's some advice. TripAdvisor now searches more than 200 booking sites to find the hotel you want and save you up to 30%. Trust this bird's words.
Take one. Let's talk about when you got braces for the first time.
I did have to wear headgear.
Pieces of metal in your mouth. Popping off rubber bands, I'm breaking off brackets.
Anytime I had to talk, I was like, hey.
And by the end, my teeth moved back again.
Have you ever heard of invisible aligners?
I'd never heard of such a thing, honestly.
At Smile Direct Club, we believe you shouldn't have to wear braces to get a smile you'll love. We straighten and brighten smiles for 60% less by working directly with top dentists to ship custom invisible aligners direct to you. Each month, we'll send you new aligners that continue to gently straighten your teeth, and our smile guarantee makes getting started risk-free.
Super cool, super cute, looks just like my teeth.
Wow, $95 a month, really?
You never have to go into the dentist's office.
Get my full smile back, feel confident again.
Why would anyone go back to having braces again, especially as an adult? I really wish this was there when I was a kid.
I'm ready to go sign up wherever it is. Is it out there?
My son is a wonderful young man. He took a meeting with a Russian lawyer, not a government lawyer, but a Russian lawyer. It was a short meeting. I think from a practical standpoint, most people would have taken that meeting. It's called opposition research or even research into your opponent. I've had many people, I have only been in politics for 2 years, but I've had many people call up, oh, gee, we have information on this factor or this person or, frankly, Hillary. That's very standard in politics. Politics is not the nicest business in the world, but it's very standard where they have information and you take the information. And honestly, I think the press made a very big deal over something that really a lot of people would do. The lawyer that went to the meeting, I say that she was in the halls of Congress also. Somebody said that her visa or her passport to come into the country was approved by Attorney General Lynch. Now, maybe that's wrong. I just heard that a little while ago, but it's a little surprised to hear that. So she was here because of Lynch.
That's President Trump at a news conference yesterday in Paris defending his son Don Jr. and blaming former Attorney General Loretta Lynch for the Russian attorney being in the U.S. in the first place. Charles Krauthammer writes in the Washington Post, quote, bungled collusion is still collusion. He writes, the Russia scandal has entered a new phase and there's no going back. The evidence is now shown. This is not hearsay, not fake news, not unsourced leaks. This is an email chain released by Donald Trump Jr. himself. Once you've said, I'm in, it makes no difference that the meeting was a bust, that the intermediary brought no such goods. I leave it to the lawyers to adjudicate the legalities of unconsummated collusion. But you don't need a lawyer to see that the Trump defense, collusion as a desperate Democratic fiction designed to explain away a lost election, is now officially dead. Rick, let's do this exercise again as we listen to Donald Trump saying everyone would have taken the meeting. You worked on Ted Cruz's presidential campaign. You get a phone call, an email, something from an intermediary, from a foreign entity specifically, saying, I've got dirt on one of your opponents. What do you do?
So typically, what Trump is doing here is he's saying one thing that's true and mixing it with something that's not true. So is it true that every day people call in and say they've got dirt on their opponent? Yes. Does that reach the level of the campaign manager? Never, right? And the idea that a foreign national or someone who represents a foreign government, as distinct from a foreigner who's hired by an independent. That's why you have professionals. You have a professional op research who vets things for you, makes sure that they're correct, and you build a file. And there would be no way I'm amazed that people are saying that are agreeing with Trump that this is routine. It's not routine. You would never take a call or a meeting at that level. And the thing is, what's interesting is Paul Manafort knows better. And I think he probably may have realized what kind of a meeting he was in, which is why he wasn't really paying attention to it. But the idea, and it's surprising, Willie, too, major donors will call. Now you got a problem because you got to entertain what they're saying. And they had this whole conspiracy theory wound up, and you got to listen to it. But it doesn't reach the candidate, and it doesn't reach the campaign manager. They don't spend their time on those things. And by the way, sorry to keep going on about this. The idea that a woman who was First Lady, was Secretary of State, was a U.S. Senator, ran in 2008, and ran in 2016, if there's any Oppo research left on that person, is ridiculous.
But Trump, what's ridiculous about it, he didn't even, his argument was not nothing happened in the meeting. His argument was everybody would have done it because it's an opposition. Right. No, it's Russia, and it was from the Russian government. And this is not the first time that's happened. They tried to reach the JFK campaign, and they sent it to the FBI, and they tried to reach the W. Bush campaign, and they sent it to the FBI. So, no, people would not have taken this meeting.
Here's why these emails mark a tipping point. Because we now know that there was a Russian campaign, we knew that before, but that they knew about it, that they welcomed it, they were trying to get the information, and that they capitalized on it during the campaign. Trump was using all of the WikiLeaks information, and that at the end of all of it, even if nothing happened, nothing in between Don's emails and the end of the campaign, what did we see at the end of the campaign? We saw Mike Flynn trying to possibly reward them by having these conversations about lifting sanctions and lying about them. We saw Jared Kushner meeting with the Russian bankers. We don't have the details of specifically what was discussed, but like I said, even if nothing happened, we now know that they knew, and they welcomed it, and they used it to their advantage.
Kushner tried to set up a back channel with the Russians. Do you remember this? Yeah. This person should be nowhere near national security clearances. Shouldn't have anything to do with them.
And by the way, Don Trump Sr., who did not know about that meeting, somehow the next day in his speech said, we're going to have a big speech coming about Hillary Clinton that's going to knock your socks off.
Actually, it's worse than that. I looked at the timeline really close. It was not weeks, it was not days, it was hours within that, from when that meeting was set to when Trump started to tease that we're going to have a big speech.
And Jon Meacham, sorry, Mike, I want to get to Meacham real quick. As Donald Trump Jr. has spun this meeting and said it was a courtesy call, this music producer guy, promoter I know. If that was the case and it was a courtesy meeting, which we know it was more than that based on the email that Donald Trump Jr. made public, why do you bring the campaign manager and Jared Kushner to that meeting if it's a blow-off meeting?
No, I think you're right, and I think the tone of the emails suggests that they were expecting Trump Jr. was expecting to learn something that would be useful. I mean, this is not one where we have to speculate. You know, it's in black and white. It was released because the Times was on the case, and the Free Press is doing a good job here. So I think that they were expecting, you know, as Rick says, you know, somehow or another there was going to be yet another file on Hillary Clinton. And I don't think there's much mystery about that part.
He also did one other thing with that statement. He maintained his consistency in the war against the media, in the attempt to diminish the impact of the media. When he said the lawyer, the Russian lawyer, she got her visa from Attorney General Lynch. You know how you get a visa. You go to a consulate in your own country or to the American embassy in Moscow.
But you call the Attorney General directly, no?
No. But people will believe that. There is a percentage of people who will believe that.
Still ahead this morning, we're going to go live to Paris for new reporting from our White House team, plus some fascinating conversation between Donald Trump and the press on his plane, now on the record. We'll share that with you when we come back.
Richard Engel doesn't just get the story, he goes to the center of it.
This is where the battlefront is.
Join him for a special series, On Assignment with Richard Engel. This week he's reporting from Iraq, on the front lines of the battle for Mosul.
At its peak, there were 2.5 million people living here.
Taking an up-close look at an American medic working alongside an Iraqi doctor, and exploring how the Iraq War splintered the country, leading to the rise of ISIS. On Assignment with Richard Engel, tonight at 10 on MSNBC.
The Jaguar F-Pace. 2017 World Car of the Year and 2017 World Car Design of the Year. With our first SUV, we didn't just change the game, we elevated it. For great offers, visit your local Jaguar retailer today.
Only Tylenol Rapid Release Gels have laser-drilled holes. They release medicine fast for fast pain relief. Tylenol.
My mom loves to volunteer, but I worry because she recently had a fall. So I got her the new Lively Mobile from GreatCall. It's the medical alert device she takes everywhere. And it's so reassuring knowing she can get help with just the press of a button.
In any unsafe or uncertain situation, you'll be immediately connected to a highly trained agent who can get you the help you need.
Buy the Lively Mobile at Rite Aid or Walmart Pharmacy, and the first month is free. Exclusively from GreatCall.
If you are told you have cancer, explore your treatment options with specialists who treat only cancer. Every stage, every day. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Learn more at cancercenter.com/experts.
What's the story behind Green Mountain Coffee and fair trade? Let's take a flight to Colombia. This is Boris Calvo. Boris grows mind-blowing coffee. And because we pay him a fair price, he improves his farm and invests in his community to make even better coffee. All for a smoother tasting cup. Green Mountain Coffee.
A cockroach can survive submerged underwater for 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Not getting in today. Not on my watch.
Pests never stop trying to get in. At TERMINIX, we never stop working to keep them out. That's what makes us America's leading pest and termite control provider, because we do whatever it takes to stop them in their tracks. For a free pest estimate, call 1-800-772-1983. Take action to protect your home today, and if pests ever do come back, so will we. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. For a free pest estimate, call 1-800-772-1983 or visit Terminix.com. Terminix, defenders of home.
SBA loans made easy.
While traveling to Paris this week, the president held an extended off-the-record discussion with reporters, which the White House later surprised many by releasing excerpts of. It was a 90-minute discussion with the president at the back of the plane. The president talked at length about his private audience with Vladimir Putin. He once more sought to explain how he confronted the Russian president over election interference during that meeting at the G20, saying he asked Putin twice. The second time, quote, in a totally different way, as if to get another answer from him. The president went on, according to transcripts, quote, I'm not saying it wasn't Russia. What I'm saying is that we have to protect ourselves no matter who it is. You know, China is very good at this. I hate to say it, North Korea is very good at this. Look what they did to Sony Studios. They were the ones that did the whole deal to Sony. The president continued, I did say we can't have a scintilla of doubt about elections and going forward. A reporter asked, have you told him that? To which the president responded, I told him, I said, look, we can't have now. He said, absolutely not, twice. What do? End up in a fist fight with somebody? Okay. So, Heidi, the president goes to the back of the plane, has this long conversation, and again makes the case that, yes, this is the account we got from Tillerson's camp in the New York Times, that he pushed Putin hard for the first 40 minutes or whatever the number is now, and that they got Putin to say, no, I didn't do this. And what else do you want me to do, effectively, is now the response from the president.
We will never know the full truth. Why? Because breaking with standard protocol from the past, we didn't have anybody in there other than him and Rex Tillerson. But some of the reports that we've gotten suggest that he tried to put it in very perfunctory at the top and said, look, we got to do this. Did you do it? He said no. Okay, let's move on and talk about Syria. That's one version of the account. The other version is the version that the president is giving us. And unfortunately, at this point, I don't know which one we can trust. But the one thing we do know is even if that happened, there was no discussion of consequences, no saying, look, if you continue to do this, these are going to be the consequences. So there's still something there as to why this president does not want to crack down on Russia, does not want to do anything to upset Vladimir Putin.
You know, Rick, you look at that statement from the president to the press, and again, even when he's saying, yes, Russia probably did something, it's always qualified. It's always, yeah, okay, I guess they did something, but China does it too, North Korea does it too. Yeah. He can't just cleanly say that Russia, as his intel agencies have told him, interfered in the 2016
election. I should point out that you didn't misread that. Those are actually the words.
Yeah, I know. That's why I stumbled a little, but those were the verbatim quotes.
He used the word scintilla also.
He did.
Wow,
it's a good word.
Yeah.
No, he never answers the question directly. He wants to leave room, and so he clouds it all up. Well, it could have been China. Remember the North Koreans, Sony. It's always look over here, instead of putting it to rest. But I do think it's right in the meeting. Like, so we have to believe either Putin or Trump on the outcome of the meeting, right? So we don't have a good choice there. I do believe he asked it, but I think it was this big check off. Okay, I asked it, and let's move on. And he thought that I asked it, I confronted with him. We can put that behind us now. Let's get on to other things and have a good relationship with Russia, which I don't think is possible because they're clearly trying to undermine us.
Willie, you buried the lead. Are we going to get that other story of what he covered?
Well, it was almost a 90-minute discussion. Okay. He talked about Syria. He talked about Russia. He talked a lot about China and trade. The wall? He was asked about the wall.
Transparency.
Can we read this? I just want to, can I tease this for our viewers at home?
Sure,
okay?
Donnie, yeah.
This came out of the president's mouth, okay? Two reporters. This was not a joke. What Willie is about, and have your children maybe step away from the TV because they're going to get frightened.
No.
Okay, you need to listen to more than anything else. Listen.
Okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's the backdrop, is that he said the wall physically needs transparency. It can't be a steel wall. You've got to be able to see through it. And here's why. This is a quote from the president. I'll give you an example. As horrible as it sounds, when they throw the large sacks of drugs over, and if you have people on the other side of the wall, you don't see them, they hit you in the head with 60 pounds of stuff, it's over. As crazy as that sounds, you need transparency through that wall. So you need the physical transparency, maybe holes in the metal or something, so that when those 60-pound sacks of drugs come over the wall and hit unwitting bypassers, nobody is injured.
And Willie, I believe if you check it out, all along the Rio Grande is a very busy walking area. Everybody knows that.
Lovely promenade.
Hospitals in that area are filled with people with concussion syndrome.
That's
having been hit
fake
with
news,
these 60-pound bags.
That's fake news.
60 sacks.
Because people are just hanging around selling hot dogs outside the wall.
Heavy sacks of drugs flying over the wall. Still ahead, we're going to go live to Paris. The president just finishing up watching the Bastille Day parade there. Our White House team has some new reporting that you're not going to want to miss. I promise. That's straight ahead.
We've all been affected by cancer. Some way, somehow. Dana-Farber Cancer Institute is pursuing breakthroughs every day to help end cancer. like identifying genetic mutations for targeted therapies and teaching your immune system to attack cancerous cells by constantly using information in completely new ways. We're cracking the cancer code. Learn more at discovercarebelieve.org.
What's the story behind Green Mountain Coffee and fair trade? Let's take a flight to Colombia. This is Boris Calvo. Boris grows mind-blowing coffee. And because we pay him a fair price, he improves his farm and invests in his community to make even better coffee. All for a smoother tasting cup. Green Mountain Coffee.
When it came time to sell our home, suddenly everybody knew an agent.
I think my yoga instructor, Steve, is a real estate agent.
We were not going to list with my sister's yoga instructor, Steve. That's when we found HomeLight.
HomeLight showed us the best agents in our area.
They matched us with the perfect agent for our needs.
Our home sold above listing price in just 8 days.
Steve, they found their agent with HomeLight.
Home what?
HomeLight.com.
You do all this research on the perfect car, then smash it into a tree. Your insurance company raises your rates. Maybe you should have done more research on them.
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise your rates due to your first accident. Liberty Insurance.
There's nothing more important to me than my vacation. So when I need to book a hotel room, I want someone that makes it easy to find what I want.
Booking.com gets it. And with their price match, I know I'm getting the best price every time.
Now I can start relaxing even before the vacation begins.
Your vacation is very important. That's why Booking.com makes finding the right hotel for the right price easy. Visit Booking.com now to find out why we're Booking.yeah.
Who can help you undo the damage done by fire or water? Search no further than the experts at ServiceMaster Restore. We help people go from disaster to done. ServiceMaster Restore.
Now you can join Angie's List for free, which means everyone has access to our real reviews that we actually verify. And we can also verify that what goes down doesn't always come back up. Find a great plumber at Angie's List. Join today for free.
This is me when I feel controlled by frequent, unpredictable abdominal pain or discomfort and diarrhea. I've tried lifestyle changes and over-the-counter treatments, but my symptoms keep coming back. It turns out I have irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea, or IBSD, a condition that's really frustrating. That's why I talked to my doctor about Viberzi, a different way to treat IBSD.
Viberzi is a prescription medication you take every day that helps proactively manage both abdominal pain and diarrhea at the same time.
So I can stay ahead of my symptoms.
Viberzi can cause new or worsening abdominal pain. Do not take Viberzi if you have no gallbladder, have pancreas or severe liver problems, problems with alcohol abuse, long-lasting or severe constipation, or a bowel or gallbladder blockage. Pancreatitis may occur and can lead to hospitalization and death. If you're taking Viberzi, you should not take medicines that cause constipation. The most common side effects of Viberzi include constipation, nausea, and abdominal pain.
Stay ahead of IBSD with Viberzi.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is Friday, July 14th. Joe and Mika have the morning off. We've got Mike Barnacle, Republican campaign strategist, MSNBC political contributor Rick Tyler, Donnie Deutsch in the bow tie, and senior politics reporter at USA Today, Heidi Prisbilla, still with us. Also along, Pulitzer Prize winning historian Jon Meacham, and joining the conversation, NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Casey Hunt, and Pulitzer Prize winning columnist and associate editor of the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson. In just a moment, we'll go live to Paris for some new reporting from our White House team. We begin, though, with new questions this morning about what Jared Kushner left off his security clearance form, particularly following the revelation of that meeting with a Russian attorney. Now, the New York Times reports Kushner has supplemented the list of foreign contacts 3 times, adding more than 100 names. Based off the reporting of the New York Times and Yahoo News, the timeline goes like this. On January the 18th, 2 days before the inauguration, Kushner filed the form, but an assistant accidentally hit send too quickly. Reports say he immediately told the FBI he would amend it. But on April 6th, the New York Times reported that he had not listed any foreign contacts. On May 11th, Kushner filed his revised form, which the FBI interviewed him about in mid-May. According to Yahoo, the Russian meeting emails were discovered in June, and Kushner filed a revised form on June 21st. And the FBI interviewed Kushner again on June the 23rd. White House advisors tell the New York Times Kushner met with Trump to discuss the issue around the time he updated his federal disclosure form to include the attorney Veselnitskaya's name on a list of foreign contacts. It's unclear what Kushner reportedly told his father-in-law, given that President Trump said on Wednesday he found out about the meeting only 2 or 3 days ago. Casey, let me bring you into this conversation. We've been talking about it a little bit already this morning. This seems to be a pattern with Jared Kushner, adding now these 100 names to his foreign contacts list, remembering 3 meetings that he forgot to put on his disclosure forms. There's something about Russia here.
I think, look, every time something like this happens, the stakes get higher for Jared Kushner as these investigations over at the Capitol keep proceeding. And, of course, as Bob Mueller continues his probe here, they still haven't, there's been a lot of back and forth over when Jared Kushner is going to come up and talk to Senate intelligence investigators. There have been a couple new lawyers hired, things along those lines. And I think the questions and pressure on him are going to keep mounting. I talked to Richard Blumenthal yesterday, who called on Kushner to resign completely from government. There's obviously been a lot of pressure around the idea of revoking his security clearance. It sounds like, that's not something the president can essentially give a security clearance to whomever he wants to. So I don't think there's any indication that that's going to go very far. But I do think that those bells are going to get louder.
Gene Robinson writes in the Washington Post today, Ivanka and Jared begin the plunge from grace. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump have tried their best to soar gracefully above the raging dumpster fire that is the Trump administration. Unhappily for the handsome couple, gravity makes no allowances for charm. Kushner is arguably the individual with the most to lose from the revelation that the campaign did, after all, at least attempt to collude with the Russian government to boost Trump's chances of winning the election. Ivanka Trump's name has not surfaced in the Russia affair, but she, like her husband, is serving as a presidential advisor. Jared and Ivanka were expected to at least temper the hard right policy positions being pushed by other presidential advisors. If this indeed is what they are trying to do, they've had a negligible impact to date. Writing in Time magazine, Henry Kissinger wished Kushner well, quote, in his daunting role flying close to the sun, unquote. Jared and Ivanka have first-class educations, Gene writes. They know how the Icarus story ends. Gene, it is filled with more than just irony that Jared Kushner is now actually the pivot point of this probe thus far.
Yeah, there is something of a Greek myth in all this, isn't there? I mean, the background, Jared and Ivanka, son and daughter of famous, successful men. Jared, son of a real estate developer who went to federal prison for his transgressions. Both this new generation, sort of, in a sense, being the socially acceptable generation, redeeming their fathers in a way. Yet here they are in the middle of this mess. And Jared Kushner especially. I mean, he is, recall that he forgot that, or did not list that meeting with the head of a mobbed-up Russian bank that's under U.S. sanctions. He has been trying to secure in various corners of the world, or his company has been trying to secure huge loans to keep the real estate empire afloat. It's as if it's all perhaps beginning to crash in on him and on this couple that is so so graceful, so polite, so magazine cover friendly. It's quite something, and it's just an interesting and fascinating sort of side plot to this unfolding story.
All right, we've got some new reporting you're going to want to listen to right now from NBC News. NBC has learned there was someone else in that controversial meeting between Donald Trump Jr., senior advisor Jared Kushner, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and a Russian lawyer. Also in that June 9th meeting at Trump Tower was another person with alleged ties to Moscow, a Russian-American lobbyist, a former Soviet counterintelligence officer, suspected by some U.S. officials of having ongoing ties to Russian intelligence. This is something he denies. NBC News not yet naming that lobbyist, who denies any current ties to Russia's spy agencies. His presence likely to be of great interest, of course, to investigators. Natalia Veselnitskaya acknowledged to NBC News she was accompanied by someone, but declined to identify him. We'll get Hallie Jackson up in just a moment. She's, of course, traveling with the president in Paris. She can expand on this reporting. But Heidi, Donald Trump Jr. now has been talking about this story for nearly a week, going into great detail about what happened, providing the emails, doing a long interview with Sean Hannity, at the end of which he said, quote, "This is everything." Sean Hannity gave him the opportunity to say, "Is there anything else you need to say about this?" Let's listen to exactly what Don Trump Jr. said a couple of nights ago.
I'm more than happy to be transparent about it, and I'm more than happy to cooperate with everyone.
So as far as you know, as far as this incident is concerned, this is all of it?
This is everything. This is everything.
Did you ever meet with any other person from Russia that you know?
You know, I don't even know. I've probably met with other people from Russia,
I
but
mean,
certainly
during the
not in the context of a formalized meeting or anything like that, because why would I?
No mention, Heidi, in all the comments we've seen over the last several days from Donald Trump Jr. about any other Russian or any other person in the meeting aside from Kushner, Manafort, and Veselnitskaya.
We knew even before this potentially explosive new reporting just came out that Don Jr. potentially was continuing to mislead us. Why? Because in that Hannity interview, he said there was nothing else, there were no other phone calls, even though in the email itself, it said, let's set up this phone call. What time? Okay, we'll talk. And then later, there was an email saying, thanks for the information. So it was highly suggestive that even before this new information came out, he was continuing to mislead us. This new reporting coming out kind of confirms everybody's suspicion, if true, that this woman was a facilitator, even though she herself wasn't an intelligence expert or key person who could be helping the Trump officials. She was a facilitator.
Okay, we're going to talk more about this, but let's go right to the source here. NBC News chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson now just with us. Again, this is just in. NBC News has learned there was someone else in that meeting between Donald Trump Jr., senior advisor Jared Kushner, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and a Russian lawyer. Also in that June 9th meeting at Trump Tower, another person with alleged ties to Moscow. Hallie, what more can you tell us?
So here's what I can tell you. NBC News is not naming this man, but we have learned that some U.S. officials suspect him of having ties to Russian intelligence. That is something that he denies. This is the latest twist in a story that has dogged the president in Paris. He's on his way back home to Bedminster, New York now, where he'll spend the weekend after being forced to confront the Russia-related controversy here in France.
The body language between the two of them.
This morning, a major revelation about that meeting between Donald Trump Jr. and a Russian lawyer during the campaign aimed at getting dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now, NBC News has learned more about who else was in that room. A Russian-American lobbyist, a former Soviet counterintelligence officer, suspected by some U.S. officials of having ongoing ties to Russian intelligence. NBC News is not naming that lobbyist, who denies any current ties to Russian spy agencies. His presence likely to be of interest to investigators. The lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, acknowledged to NBC News she was accompanied by someone but declined to identify him. The president, before Bastille Day celebrations in Paris, defending his son.
My son is a wonderful young man. He took a meeting with a Russian lawyer, not a government lawyer, but a Russian lawyer.
But Trump Jr. accepted the meeting last June with someone at first explicitly identified as a Russian government attorney.
I think from a practical standpoint, most people would have taken that meeting. It's called opposition research, but nothing happened from the meeting. Zero happened from the meeting. And honestly, I think the press made a very big deal over something that really a lot of people would do.
The president argues it's politics as usual. And while opposition research is, what's not is when it comes from someone claiming to represent a foreign government and an adversary at that. Now, in new excerpts released from a conversation with reporters on Air Force One, the president calls his son a good boy and a good kid. Trump Jr., who's 39, is 10 days younger than the French president, who stood alongside President Trump in a Paris news conference, seeming to stifle a smile as his counterpart was asked about his past remarks after terror attacks in France.
Paris is so out of control.
We don't want to end up like France. France is no longer France.
Now?
I'm coming back. You better do a good job, please. Otherwise, you're going to make me look very bad.
So let me get to that exclusive reporting of ours this morning, guys. NBC News, we have reached out to all of the individuals, representatives for all the individuals involved initially in that June 9th, 2016 meeting. So far, no comment from them. If we get a comment, obviously we'll be updating that reporting with what, if anything, they knew about this person. And again, just to underscore something that you heard in that piece, this is likely to raise some interest, perhaps some concern now from investigators looking into all this.
So, Hallie, I know we're not naming this man, this other person who was in the room for this meeting that's been under so much scrutiny, but we do know that he was a former Soviet intel officer, and although he may deny it, almost by definition, he does have links to Russian intelligence. You don't just separate yourself and divorce yourself completely from that community.
Right. And that's why you are hearing some of these U.S. officials that we've spoken to say exactly that, Willie, that he is still suspected of having these ties. Now, again, this person who we got to emphasize we're not naming right now is denying all of that. But this is a story that will obviously continue to unfold. There had been a question, as you know, of who else was in that room. And now we're getting some more clarity on that. It's another wrinkle.
All right, Hallie Jackson in Paris, we'll let you hop back on the plane and get home as you continue to report this story out. Rick Tyler, this is jaw-dropping. I'm sorry. I mean, the fact that they've been out talking about this story as long as they have, they felt like they had their strategy put out. Donald Trump Jr. is going to release the emails. He's going to do a big interview where he says, quote, "This is everything. This is all I know about the meeting." And not once is it mentioned that there's another person in this room, let alone someone who was a former Soviet intelligence officer.
No, the ratchet has clicked again on this story. Now it's locked in, and now they're going to be asked who this person is. And as you say, a former Soviet intelligence officer, by definition, has contacts with current former intelligence officers, which would be very concerning. And it is astonishing to me that if we're going to get this out, and by releasing the emails, right, because that's where all the details about this meeting were laid out in black and white, where the president couldn't say this is fake news anymore. The source is his son, and he's given a chance to say everything about this meeting, and he misses the fact that there was someone else in the meeting. Now we're learning it. Now we start all over again.
Willie, we've got us. I'm going to do this calmly. We got to start getting outraged here. This is I got a pit in my stomach as I heard that. You're just sitting there and really visualizing what's going on there. These two kids, and it's interesting when I was watching those images of Jared Kushner, and I've talked often that he's been in his dad's business for 10 years, and that's how Don Jr.'s done. So it's no surprise these guys are doing these absurdly amateurish, like frighteningly absurd things that any intelligent person with a moral compass wouldn't do. But we've got to start being outraged. Jared Kushner needs to lose his security clearance tomorrow.
Here's the question.
Tomorrow.
Does this...
And Don Trump and Bob Mueller, he's got 30 intense intelligence attorneys on this. We've got to double and triple this, because this is the scariest thing I've seen in my life in politics. Really play this out.
Does the former Soviet operative's name appear on Jared Kushner's form, or does he have to go back again and add him?
There's some important reason why the lying is worth it, because there are so many people who are deceiving, and there's so many characters, going back to Flynn, to Sessions not disclosing his meeting with Kislyak. There's some important reason why they continue to not come forward with it all, and it's starting to upset Republicans. If you heard Trey Gowdy the other day, he said, enough is enough. Spill it. Tell us everyone you've met with.
And Gene Robinson, Don Jr. asked us to believe his account of not only who was there, but what happened inside that meeting. We, of course, expressed skepticism right away that it's just his account of what happened. So not only did he not mention this fourth person who was in the room, this former Soviet intelligence officer who was sitting in on the meeting, but now it calls into complete question what actually happened in that room. He says it was a nothing meeting. Kushner left after 7 or 8 minutes. Paul Manafort's on the phone. This whole narrative that's been created that it was a worthless meeting and it was a courtesy call. How do you believe a second of that story?
Right. I mean, frankly, I never really believed that because Donald Trump Jr. lied from the beginning about the meeting. When the New York Times found out about it, he said, oh, it's just about adoptions, and then he told a second lie about it, and finally put out the emails when they were about to be put out by the Times. So his credibility on what happened inside the room was never great. Now, there is no credibility about what happened inside the room. I think we go back to square one. Who was this person and what actually happened? And I just can't accept for a moment this idea that it was a nothing burger, nothing happened. We didn't actually get to collude with the Russians, even though we wanted to. I think now you have to say, you know, something much more serious might have happened in that room. And Donnie is right. Bob Mueller is the one to figure it out.
Jon Meacham, the history of past presidencies is replete, many of them with family issues, sons, daughters, cousins, whatever. But this seems to be a bit different, this particular family issue and the Trump presidency. And I have no idea as to the level of illegality or collusion that existed in that meeting, but the level of ignorance of how we operate as Americans and as people in political life as Americans is kind of astounding.
Well, the Trump example, both in terms of the family and of the in-laws, is unique in American history at this level of an ambient reality of the power of that circle. You know, yes, Bobby Kennedy was Attorney General, and yes, President Kennedy joked that he thought Bobby should get some legal experience by being Attorney General before he went out to practice. But Robert Kennedy was a formidable figure. This is more like the Borgias or the Bonapartes. Remember Napoleon, you know, put various brothers and cousins on different thrones, and it's taking a toll. I remember just two thoughts on this. One is there's another former Soviet intelligence officer in this mix. His name is Putin. That's important to remember. This guy started out at the KGB. Second, about 2 weeks after the inauguration, I had a conversation, private conversation with a former Obama official, so take this for considering the source, and I said, what do you think about the Russia question? And this person said, I don't have any doubt but that it's true. And I said, well, tell me how this happens. I mean, surely they don't just call up and make an appointment at Trump Tower. Well, turns out maybe they did.
Casey Hunt, we've heard time and again this week.